I will never forget the day my uncle's house nearly burned down. The smell of smoke woke me up before dawn, and I stumbled outside in my pajamas to find him frantically throwing buckets of water at his garage. It turned out that a small electrical fire had started in his workshop, where he stored his tools, wires, and equipment for his repair business. The fire was spreading fast, and the thought of everything he had worked for going up in flames was terrifying. But what struck me most that morning wasn't the fire itself. It was the chaos afterward. My uncle, usually calm and organized, was shouting, not about the fire but about what he'd lost. "Kin, do you know how much I kept in there? Tools, my backup generator, the spare parts, everything. It's all gone." That's when I realized the problem wasn't just the fire, it was that all his money, effort, and investments were tied to that single workshop. It was hard to watch my uncle that morning. He had always been a source of inspiration for me. Growing up, I admired how he built his business from nothing. He used to say, "Hard work and focus are all you need." And he lived by those words. He woke up early every day, worked long hours fixing appliances, and always treated his customers kindly. His reputation as the man who could fix anything brought people from all over the neighborhood to his workshop. His workshop was his pride. Over the years, he invested everything into it. He bought the best tools, machines, and even a small generator to ensure he could keep working during power outages. Every time he made money, he reinvested it into the workshop, buying better equipment or stocking up on spare parts. To him, it made sense. "You have to put your money where it will grow," he often said. And for a long time, his strategy worked. The workshop earned him good money, enough to take care of his family and even help others in need. He was proud of what he had built, and so were we. But that morning, as we watched the smoke rise from the burnt remains of his garage, I couldn't help but think about the risks he had taken without realizing it. You see, my uncle didn't just lose tools and equipment in that fire. He lost his entire source of income. Everything he relied on to make money was in that workshop. And because he hadn't saved or invested in anything else, he had no backup plan. For the first time, I saw my uncle, a man who always seemed so strong and confident, look defeated. The days that followed were difficult. Cleaning up the mess was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. My uncle's hands were blistered from moving burnt debris, and I could see the worry in his eyes. He had no way to earn money while the workshop was down, and the bills didn't stop coming. Electricity, school fees for his children, food, all the things we take for granted became a struggle. One evening, after a long day of cleaning, my uncle and I sat outside, staring at what was left of the workshop. The walls were blackened, the roof had caved in, and the tools that weren't completely destroyed were covered in soot. My uncle shook his head and said, "Kin, I don't know how to start over. Everything I had is gone." His words stayed with me. I couldn't stop thinking about how quickly everything had changed for him. One moment, he was running a successful business, the next, he was struggling to figure out how to rebuild. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the problem wasn't just the fire, it was how much he had depended on one thing. His entire livelihood was tied to that workshop, and when it failed, everything fell apart. That's when I remembered something a mentor once told me, "Kin, don't keep all your eggs in one basket." At the time, I thought it was just a saying about farming, but now, it made sense in a much bigger way. My uncle had put all his energy, money, and time into one thing, and when that thing failed, he had nothing to fall back on. Over the next few weeks, I started to notice how this lesson applied to so many areas of life. I thought about my own habits. How often did I put all my focus on one project, one plan, or one idea, assuming it would work out perfectly? What would happen if it didn't? Watching my uncle struggle was like seeing a warning sign. Life is unpredictable, and if you don't prepare for the unexpected, you can lose everything in an instant. One afternoon, while helping my uncle clear out the last of the debris, I decided to ask him about it. "Uncle," I said, "why didn't you save some of your money somewhere else? Like in a bank account or another business?" He paused and looked at me, then sighed. "Kin, I thought about it, but I always told myself that this workshop was enough. It's what I know best, and I trusted it. I didn't think anything could go wrong. That answer hit me hard. It wasn't that my uncle wasn't smart or hardworking. He was one of the hardest working people I knew. But he had put too much faith in one thing and didn't consider what could happen if it failed. And the truth is, we all do that sometimes. We get so focused on one idea, one plan, or one dream that we forget life doesn't always go the way we expect. As I sat there listening to my uncle, I realized that this was a lesson I needed to remember. It wasn't just about money or business. It was about how we prepare for life. Because no matter how hard you work or how much you believe in something, things can still go wrong. And when they do, the question is, will you be ready? As I helped my uncle rebuild, I couldn't stop thinking about the lesson behind his struggle. I started asking questions. What if he had some savings in the bank instead of putting every naira into his workshop? What if he had invested in something outside his business, like farmland or even shares in a company? One day, while sweeping the charred remains of the workshop, I decided to bring it up. "Uncle," I said, "why didn't you keep some of your money somewhere else? Like in a savings account or another kind of business?" He sighed heavily and leaned against the broom handle. "Kin, I thought about it, but I always told myself that this workshop was enough. It's what I know best, and I trusted it. I didn't think anything could go wrong." That stuck with me. I didn't think anything could go wrong. It wasn't that he wasn't smart or hardworking, it was that he never planned for the unexpected. And isn't that true for so many of us? We put everything into one thing, believing it will always work out, but life can be unpredictable. After that conversation, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't make the same mistake. So, I started learning about how people manage their money wisely. That's when I stumbled across something called asset allocation. It's a fancy way of saying, don't put all your money in one place. The idea is to spread your money across different things, some safe, like savings or bonds, and some that might grow more over time, like stocks, real estate, or even a side hustle. This way, if something bad happens to one part, you won't lose everything. I didn't have much money then, but I started small. I saved a little, invested a little, and even helped my uncle set up a savings account for emergencies. We talked about starting a small side project, like selling tools online, so his income wouldn't depend entirely on the workshop. Looking back now, I think about that fire as a wake-up call, not just for my uncle but for me too. It taught me that the smartest thing you can do isn't just working hard, it's making sure your money is working in different places. That's what asset allocation is all about, and it can save you from a lot of stress when life throws the unexpected your way. The fire might have destroyed my uncle's workshop, but the lesson it left behind. That's something I'll carry with me forever.